प्रेजेंटेड बाय ईबिक्स कैश। हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Good evening and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Let's take you through the headlines. The government announces a mega relief package for the telecom sector, allows telecom companies to pay their thousands of crores of dues after 4 years. Auto sector also gets a booster dose, 26,000 crore incentive given to promote green fuels. Drones get a push as well. It's a full throttle to disinvestment for Air India. Tata Sons and Spicejet's Ajay Singh submit financial bids for the airline. Government says process now moves to the concluding stage. Supreme Court slams the central government for not following its orders on filling up vacancies in tribunals, accuses the centre of cherry-picking its own candidates from those shortlisted. And a deep dive into the real reasons why the Apple iPhone is so expensive in India. Can they become cheaper in the coming months? In a move that's expected to help bolster balance sheets of telecom operators and banks that have high exposure to Vodafone Idea, the Union Cabinet today cleared a 4-year moratorium for annual payments of dues arising out of the AGR judgment. Here's the full story.
The Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, today approved 9 structural and 5 procedural reforms, along with relief measures that would provide a cushion to the telecom industry and help avoid loan defaults. Among these is the decision to provide a moratorium of up to 4 years in annual payments of dues arising out of the AGR judgment. The companies will have to pay interest on the deferred dues and have been given the option of paying the interest on the deferred payment by way of equity. The Finance Ministry will finalize the guidelines for the equity conversion if the government chooses to exercise this option after the moratorium ends.
टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में अभी जितने ड्यूज हैं टेलीकॉम सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स के, उनके लिए 4 साल का मॉरेटोरियम अप्रूव हुआ है. मॉरेटोरियम जो भी अवेल करेंगे उनको एक इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा मॉरेटोरियम वाले अमाउंट पे, विच इज MCLR प्लस 2%. इस इंटरेस्ट के साथ मॉरेटोरियम अप्रूव हुआ है.
The other reforms approved by the cabinet include excluding non-telecom revenue from the definition of AGR with effect from October 1st, rationalization of bank guarantees norms by doing away with the requirement for multiple guarantees for each telecom service area. The cabinet has also removed the penalties levied on delayed payments of license fee and spectrum usage charge. The tenure of spectrum holding with operators has been increased from 20 to 30 years. Companies will also be allowed to surrender spectrum after 10 years for spectrum acquired in the future auctions. To further encourage investments, the government also did away with the need for seeking its prior nod for 100% FDI in a telecom company.
स्पेक्ट्रम और टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में 100% FDI था पॉलिसी, लेकिन उसमें केवल 49% ऑटोमेटिक रूट में था. तो आज कैबिनेट ने फैसला किया है 100% FDI ऑटोमेटिक रूट में टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में अलाउ की गई है. ऑफ कोर्स जितने सेफगार्ड्स रहेंगे, जैसे प्रेस नोट 3 वगैरह, इस तरह के जितने भी सेफगार्ड्स हैं वो सेफगार्ड्स इसमें लागू रहेंगे.
The industry, facing one of its worst crises, has welcomed the move.
The government announced the relief package today for the telecom sector. I think it is a fantastic step and a very, very positive step towards the telecom industry from the government. 2 main highlights of the relief packages: they have turned around and now decided to take away all the non-telecom inclusions from the definition of the AGR.
Supreme Court judgment framework
The government also undertook some procedural reforms in the sector, including doing away with the need for fresh Know Your Customer clearances when a customer shifts from prepaid to postpaid and vice versa. Norms have also been eased for clearance for installation of telecom towers. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The relief package for the telecom sector has been welcomed by Vodafone Idea. Promoter of the company, Kumar Mangalam Birla, has said reforms will go a long way in unshackling the sector and will demonstrate the government's firm commitment to ensuring healthy growth of the industry. Mr. Birla also added that the measure reflected the decisiveness of the Prime Minister, the Telecom Minister and the government to address long-standing issues. Mahesh Uppal joining us. He's an expert when it comes to telecom and has been tracking these developments for a long time. Mr. Uppal, good evening. Clearly, this is much needed relief. If anything, one would only ask what took them so long, because they've come up with quite an comprehensive set of key reforms.
Yes, I think they have actually. The structural reforms were long pending and had been demanded by the industry for several years. And I think it is good that the government has taken a decisive step towards implementing those reforms, and particularly things relating to AGR, things relating to auctions, things relating to spectrum ownerships, sharing, as well as surrendering and all that. All those things are things that the industry has wanted and are really very welcome. And so are the procedural reforms that the government is planning to implement. As far as the moratorium is concerned, I am a little bit less optimistic. I do believe that the challenge before Vodafone Idea is a much larger one. The moratorium is too short in tenure, and as the minister clarified, comes with an interest. So it's not really a reduction in liability, it is just a cash flow assistance. And I don't know if the problems that Vodafone Idea is facing in particular are simply related to short-term cash flow. Right. I'm no expert at its balance sheet, but I think that you needed a much longer moratorium. Yeah. The government, of course, itself has its own hands tied. It has the economy is not doing well. Its own companies in telecom are not doing well, namely BSNL and MPNL. So it's not that easy for it to bail out any company which is in trouble. Having said that, I think I would keep my fingers crossed about how much this moratorium will help Vodafone. Right. It is true, and the minister has also clarified that these are prospective reforms, not retrospective reforms. Right. And he has also clarified, and I think that is a bit of a concern, that the government will not take any kind of a revenue hit on this, which means it really is about short-term cash flows.
Understood.
And,
right. Mr. Uppal, thank you. That clearly sums up some of the key takeaways from the reforms. A much needed step in the right direction, but still leaving quite a few questions on the table. That was the big news when it came to the telecom sector today. Now, in a major boost to the green fuel industry and to the auto industry, the government has allotted nearly 26,000 crore rupees to production-linked incentives, or the PLI scheme, for the auto sector. The funds will be available to companies investing over 2,000 crore rupees in four-wheeler manufacturing or 1,000 crores in two-wheeler manufacturing over 5 years. The scheme is, however, limited to the production of electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel vehicles. The plan sees a reduction in the outlay for the auto sector PLI scheme that was announced last year. A number of auto component segments are also covered under the scheme. The government has given incentives to the tune of 120 crores for the drone industry as well. They expect about 5,000 crores of investments in the Indian drone industry.
26,058 करोड़ का प्रावधान किया गया है, जिसमें से ऑटो सेक्टर के लिए 25,938 करोड़ रुपए का प्रावधान रहेगा और ड्रोन सेक्टर के लिए 120 करोड़ रुपए का प्रावधान किया जाएगा। इस योजना से देश में एडवांस ऑटोमोबाइल व्हीकल्स और ऑटो कंपोनेंट्स और ड्रोन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को काफ़ी निर्माण करने में बल मिलेगा और इन क्षेत्रों में चैंपियन इंडस्ट्रीज को विकसित करने का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा.
There are certain supply chains which are either non-existent in India or are weak. This scheme is incentivizing setting up those supply chains in India so that imports of these advanced automotive technologies comes down, but at the same time we are able to export and increase our share in the global market.
Now let's take a look at how the indices fared today. Remember, on Wednesday, after hitting a fresh record high levels, following the US inflation print suggested Fed may keep supporting the economy. The sensex was up in a very strong session. 58,723 is where it closed up. Nifty also up about 139 odd points. A good day, 0.8% for both the benchmarks. Major gainers included NTPC, Bharti Airtel, Coal India, ONGC and Titan. Those are some of the preferred players today. Tata Consumer, Nestle, Grasim, BPCL and Asian Paints bringing up the losers list. Now, the Finance Ministry today also said that the debt-laden Air India has received financial bids for its privatisation process. In a tweet, the Secretary of the Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, Tuhin Kanta Pandey, said that the financial bids for Air India divestment have been received by the transaction advisor and the process now moves to the concluding stage. Tata Sons has confirmed its bid, while news reports added that Spicejet's Ajay Singh has also submitted a bid via a specially formed company. So what's in it for both these players? Manu Kaushik is joining us. Manu, talk us through strategically how this will fit in with a Tata Stans or an Ajay Singh's plans when it comes to the aviation space.
So both airlines, if you look at the history of Tata Group and the Spicejet, I would not say Spicejet because what I understand right now is that Ajay Singh has bid in his personal capacity. So I think let's not confuse Spicejet with Ajay Singh. So Ajay Singh in his personal capacity, from what I am hearing from the news reports and my sources, is that Ajay Singh has bid for the airline, and so is the Tata Group. So if you look at the profile of Tata Group, they are already running two airlines. One is a low-cost carrier, Air Asia India, and one is the Vistara, which is a full-service carrier. So Air India, it has two offers on. I mean, as part of the sale, Air India has two parts, right? One is Air India Express, which is a low-cost model, and one is the Air India, which is a full-service carrier. So if you look at the synergies between Tata Group as well as Air India, you see one low-cost airline, as compared to one low-cost airline, and one full-service airline as compared to another full-service airline. So there's a huge synergy between Tata Group and the Air India. And also, I want to point out to the fact that Air India right now is in a much better financial situation as compared to Ajay Singh. So the likelihood of Air India winning this bid is more right now as it looks like. But you can never rule out Spicejet or Ajay Singh because at the end of the day, the government will give the airline to whosoever is bidding the higher amount.
Clearly waiting to see those numbers when they're released. Meanwhile, what's probably a related development, thank you Manu for joining us, Spicejet also raised funds from the SBI Cap Trustee Company. According to a press release, they've pledged 2.74% of shareholding amounting to 1.65 crore shares. The market value of these shares is around 122 crores. Ajay Singh, the promoter of Spicejet, had recently been in talks with SBI to arrange funding for his Air India bid. Now, have you ever wondered why the iPhone is so expensive here in India? Well, it's because the government is extracting its own pound of flesh on the sales of these super premium handsets. Business Today TV shows you the economics behind the iPhone.
Today, we are thrilled to introduce our next generation of iPhone. Here it is.
The high point of the year for die-hard Apple junkies, the September launch of the new iPhone and other Apple products. This year was no different, with Tim Cook and company unveiling the latest iteration of the smartphone. Unfortunately, it looks and feels just like its predecessor, prompting a meme fest online. Most users expressed frustration with a lack of innovation, both in design and features. There were those who griped about the sticker shock, and those who felt it wasn't a big step above the iPhone 12. In India, however, the biggest grievance was and remains the fact that the iPhone's price is one of the highest in India across the world. Converting the dollar price into rupees, the basic iPhone 13 mini costs 51,500 rupees in the United States, around 18,500 rupees cheaper than in India. The iPhone 13 is about 20,000 rupees cheaper, while the more expensive models are up to 50,000 rupees cheaper in the United States. The difference can be traced to taxes. The latest iPhone model is not manufactured in India and is being imported. As per calculations by Business Today, the iPhone 13 mini attracts a total tax of 21,500 rupees, nearly half its basic price of 48,000 rupees. The tax incidence increases with price. When buying an iPhone 13, you pay tax and duties of 24,500 rupees. For the Pro model, the tax amount is 37,000 rupees and it is 40,000 rupees for the Pro Max model. There are no signs the government plans to ease up. The only hope for the consumer is that Apple shifts more of its manufacturing to India so that the custom duty at least may be saved on. With Nidhi Singhal, Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
And as promised every Wednesday, here's our segment with Udayan Mukherjee, our global business editor, answering all your stock-related queries. Udayan, let's start off then. We've got loads of questions to go through this week, and our first viewer query, it's a video query today. Surya Narayan, who is from Bengaluru, wants to know about Tata Steel. Let's listen into his question.
I'm Surya Narayana from Bangalore. I bought Tata Steel at 1410. Should I hold it or sell it?
Well, you've bought very close to the market price of Tata Steel. And I can understand that there is some unease in the market now with the level of the stock price, because stock has had a phenomenal rally from all the way 650 to all the way up to 1450 now or thereabouts now. So, there's a sense of vertigo with Tata Steel, indeed all commodity stocks at this point. But I would say that domestic steel prices are still climbing, and Tata Steel is reporting record numbers. I don't think we've seen this kind of EBITDA per ton margins in Tata Steel for a very long time, years maybe, and these prices may still be climbing. So, maybe there is a possibility that if the market runs into rough weather, or because the rally has been so swift, you could see a bout of consolidation, even correction. And metal stocks do give you very sharp corrections. By their nature, they're very high beta. So it's not inconceivable that Tata Steel will also see a correction in the days to come. But looking at the trajectory, I think Tata Steel's profitability will continue to remain fairly high for the next many quarters. I don't know whether this is a commodity super cycle. If that is the case, then this is not the time for you to be thinking about selling Tata Steel. But you could find in corrective bouts the stock coming down to those 1200, 1250 kind of levels. And that would be a pretty good entry opportunity for a stock like Tata Steel. I don't think Tata Steel has reached peak valuations compared to previous up cycles in commodities. I think there's still a way to go. So you probably are better off being patient in this name and not looking at too many trading opportunities.
Okay, here's another question, this time from Rajendra Pai from Mumbai. Listen in.
I have parked most of my money off late in fixed deposits. I want to invest about 25 to 30 lakhs in the stock markets now, maybe in some good stocks or some good mutual funds. But my problem is past 7 to 8 months, I have been seeing market is reaching a new high every time. So I am unable to decide whether this is the right time to enter the market or otherwise.
This is a classic conundrum for people who want to invest but cannot enter the market because the level is very high. As you've seen yourself, you can keep on waiting for a correction to buy, but the market will not oblige you. This has happened time after time down the years, and it happens with investors all the time, and it leaves them very, very frustrated. There is just no way to be able to time the market in terms of a perfect entry opportunity afforded by a correction just when you want it. You can keep on waiting, and finally, after 10%, 15% higher, the market may fall, and by that time you would have been very, very tired of waiting. My simple advice is that without knowing whether there will be a correction down the right, and you may be proved right, maybe a correction is looming, but since there is no perfect way of timing it, my advice would be that you've earmarked 25 lakh rupees. I think it's best to take the first step, because what happens is, if you cannot take the first step, then you keep on waiting indefinitely. But when you put in 5 lakhs of this 25 lakhs and then you wait, and the market maybe eases a little bit, you put 5 lakhs more, or the market shows signs of running away and you buy on the way up. But if you stagger your investment and you take the first step, often you get a reasonable average price, and it's much better than just being left out and feeling frustrated later. So I would say, don't try and time this one. Maybe do it in a staggered way, because the market, as you said, has gone up a lot, and do it in tranches of 5 lakhs. And at the end of it, you'll look back and say that you probably took the right decision.
All right, the eternal question as to when to enter the market. Now, Mitali Singh from Delhi has the following query on Maruti shares. Listen in.
Udayan, my question to you is, what's your view on Maruti share? Should I buy now or wait for some time?
You know, Maruti has traditionally been an absolute evergreen, and really one of the core building blocks of a long-term portfolio. But of late, since COVID started, the stock has had a terrible bout of underperformance. Even at the start of this year, the stock was 8,000 and is now languishing below 7,000 rupees at a time when the market's gone up so much. So I think autos might stage a bounce back, and that bounce back is probably around the corner. It might take another 3 months or 6 months, and I'm keeping fingers crossed that we don't get a third wave, because COVID does set back many of these auto stocks quite significantly, because demand gets impacted almost immediately. Are valuations inexpensive for Maruti? Yes, if you look out 2 years. There are some issues though with Maruti. One, of course, is the major issue which is lying ahead, that at some point in the future we'll have a huge disruption coming from electric vehicles. I mean, it's already knocking at our doors. Is Maruti ready for that future? Because a lot of investors are actually very cagey about entering any kind of an auto stock 2 years before a major disruption like electric vehicles. That's one big problem with Maruti. The other big problem is that there is a marked semiconductor chip shortage right now. And because of that, Maruti's delivery schedule is getting impacted, or production schedule is getting impacted quite badly. So with these two challenges, I think while there might be a pullback in Maruti because of the long period of underperformance, I would probably say the next couple of years, if you do get an upcycle in autos, use that as an opportunity to lighten up on your auto portfolio and not add up significantly. So it's conceivable that Maruti goes back to 9,000 rupees at some point over the next 1 year. But would I be buying a lot of Maruti then? Perhaps not. I would probably say it's a good idea to lighten up and see how this EV disruption and the chip shortage plays out. So I'm not exactly terribly bullish about Maruti. Good that the stock is. I would be a bit careful. I think there are far greater, better sectors in the market right now.
Udayan, thanks so much for once again taking all those queries. And remember, many more queries answered online on businesstoday.in. That's all we have time for tonight. Thanks for watching.